Good morning from Singapore, everyone. Welcome to AVPN Virtual Conference 2020, the largest convening of social investors in Asia. Good morning, midday, afternoon and evening, everyone. This is Oti from Singapore, where it's 12 noon at the moment, and I'm very happy to welcome you to the session Challenges for Corporates in Navigating the COVID-19 Pandemic. My name is Oti. I am AVPN Southeast Asia Director, and I'm very delighted to have you join us today. For those of you who do not know much about AVPN, we are a network of funders and resource providers with over 600 members across 32 markets. Our mandate is to move more capital towards impact in Asia by providing social investors like yourself opportunities to connect, learn, and lead. We will be sharing highlights of our day live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So don't forget to share your experience with us by using the hashtag AVPN2020. Together with our team, I will be ensuring that your learning experience with us this afternoon is a meaningful one. So before we start with the panel conversation, I would like to highlight a few features in this room to keep our conversations lively. If at any time you're finding that a speaker's webcam video is facing a lag, please pause the video by hovering over the face and clicking on the pause button to reduce your internet bandwidth. If you're facing any other technical challenges or have questions to us, please do not hesitate to reach out to us through the Q&A pod. We will strive to address your query as soon as we can. You can also click on the link sharing at AVPN Tech Help Desk. Please note that this session will be recorded, and you will be able to access the recording from conference.avpn.asia. We encourage active participation from all of you, and you may type any questions and comments you have. We will convey these questions to our speakers continuously during the whole session. Due to time constraints, the speakers may not be able to respond to all of your questions today, but if this is the case, we will share the questions and comments with them after the session for their consideration. We will also be running polls and activities to get your insights during the session. You will already see the first poll visible on the screen, so please feel free to share your response now. If you take a look at the bottom of the screen, we have also provided you with reading materials that you can download or refer to. To the AVPN COVID-19 page, you will find more examples from corporate members that are stepping up the pandemic challenge in big ways. So please do visit that page as well. Please make full use of the AVPN connector to continue chatting with your speakers and fellow delegates during the whole conference week. You find the link in the resource section, bottom left. A quick 1-minute tutorial can also be found on the main conference site to make full use of your networking opportunities. With that, I would like to hand over the microphone to our session moderator, Neina Suproval-Patra, AVPN CEO and Chairperson. Neina, over to you, please.
Good morning, good afternoon. It's very nice to welcome you all to the next session at AVPN's 2020 virtual conference. As COVID-19 has crashed the global economy, all businesses, whether large multinationals or small startups, have faced an unprecedented situation where they are challenged with their own responsibilities on one hand towards their employees, their vendors and partners, whilst in a lot of cases fighting for their own survival and existence. At this point, I think it is safe to say that the COVID-19 pandemic will continue to disrupt our lives for months, if not years to come. And it has already shown us how vulnerable our current socio-economic structures are and how essential it is, especially for businesses, to develop strong contingency plans and fair practices. I think it is fair to say that business cannot continue as usual. To discuss this very important topic, I am delighted today to welcome an amazing group of panelists. I would like to start by introducing Manuel Arroyo. Manuel, or Manolo Arroyo, is the Chief Marketing Officer and President of the Asia Pacific Group of the Coca-Cola Company. He is responsible for integrated global marketing, which includes teams for creative, category, and marketing operations, design, and knowledge and insights. He is also responsible for operations in the Asia Pacific Group's 5 business units, along with the company's Bottling Investments Group, which is primarily focused on key markets in Southeast and Southwest Asia. Manolo was appointed the Chief Marketing Officer by Coca-Cola in 2020 and as the Asia Pacific President in 2019. Manolo is based with us here in Singapore. Over to you, Manolo.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I wanted to start by just sharing my sympathy for all of those that have been affected by this tremendous pandemic. And this is a resounding thank you to the health community, to our more than 86,000 employees, our 125 bottling partners, our 28 million customers and stores and shops that we serve every week, and particularly all who are working to keep us safe, which is at this point a priority for us. As a company that is driven by a purpose which is to refresh the world and make a difference, our first priority during the outbreak of this pandemic has been obviously the safety of our employees and the safety of all our associates. That immediately connected to that and in line with that purpose of really making a difference that has been our guiding light for more than 138 years now. We've early on, we make a series of commitments to try to help where it was most needed. A lot of other companies started to basically investing in advertising. Our view was, rather than communicate and to talk about how good we are, we decided to basically go off air and stop all our marketing communications for more than 30 days. In some places of the world up to 90 days. And we redeployed a significant portion of those savings back into the community. As of today, we've donated actually more than $100 million so far. Many of those investments have been behind donations to personal protective equipment and beverages for the health workers in the 212 countries where we operate today. We've also done many other things, including putting at the service of the community our supply chains and manufacturing, our distribution networks, which, as you probably know, are pretty sizable. And we have even redeployed some of our manufacturing capacities to produce some hand sanitizers that have been donated to hospitals, clinics, and nursing homes. We see actually 3+1 phases during this pandemic. The first one, the outbreak, with a heavy lockdown that is still underway in a few countries around the world. The second phase, where we are right now today, for the most part, in most of the geographies. The third one, which should be actually, to be more precise, should be titled as a new abnormal pre-vaccine. And we see a fourth phase unveiling at some point towards the end of 2021, most likely 2022, which will be when and if a vaccine is ever available and is being deployed to a majority or a sizable part of the global population. As we have gone through this period of heavy lockdown, we are seeing that consumers around the world are at the same time overwhelmed, but also they have a lot of time for reflection on what's really important for them. What are the real priorities for them as individuals, for them as families, and for the overall communities, and what is actually the kind of world we would like to have. And in that context, we see a lot of the important elements of our social license strategy being even far more important. In the past, we've been extremely active, particularly on 3 fronts, actually a few more, but just to name a few: water, where we in 2010 we committed to become water neutral. We achieved that actually in 2017. We actually returned to Mother Nature far more water than what we use in the manufacturing of our products every year. So we are water positive at this point. Carbon footprint is also a very important one, where we are committed to reduce by 25% of our emissions by 2030. Waste is actually where we see a lot of the biggest action going on right now as we speak, and we see this accelerating after the pandemic. We've made the commitment to make our packaging 100% recyclable by 2025, 100% packaging collection, whether it's glass, plastic, or cans, by 2030, and use at least no less than 50% of recycled material in all our packaging by 2030. There's a lot of other activities, particularly that are relevant to the region. Since 2010, globally we have provided access to more than 10 million individuals around the world to clean water, sanitation, and hygiene through our different partnerships. More than 4 million in the region, particularly in China, India, Southeast and West Asia, and ASEAN. And finally, another very important element of commitment for us that we started back in 2011 is to develop or enable or empower 5 million women around the world by 2020 to promote social equality to the degree that is possible. So far, we're very, very close. This is the last year of that program. Most likely, we're going to renew that as well moving forward. And it's also a fundamental component of our social commitment and social license strategy for the company. So let me just wrap it up there, and happy to pass it over to the next speaker.
Thank you, Manolo. That was really interesting. I want to now introduce my second speaker for the panel, Anne Patricia Sutanto. Anne Patricia Sutanto is the Vice CEO of PT Pan Brothers Tbk. She joined in 1997 and has played a vital role in turning the company into Indonesia's largest garment manufacturer, which makes apparel for international well-known brands and has more than 37,000 employees across Indonesia. Anne is also an award-winning, passionate and successful professional who graduated from the University of Southern California and received her master's in business administration from Loyola Marymount University, Los Angeles. In addition, she is actively involved on various organizations such as the Foreign Trade Association in the Indonesian Textile Association. She's a member of the advisory board in DPN APN Apindo, and she's the vice chairperson of DPP Apindo, the Indonesian Entrepreneur Association for Banten Province. She is also the board member of Endeavor Indonesia, a member of YPO Indonesia, and even a member of B20. Anne, love for you to introduce.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Naina, for introducing us. Currently, my role is in the Vice CEO of Pan Brothers, largest garment in Indonesia. By listed, we have about 117 million capacity. And what I would like to share with all of you is today's the challenges for us during the COVID-19 pandemic, due to the global challenges as well as the domestic challenges. So to introduce you again, we have about 40,000 employees across 25 factories that we have in Indonesia, Banten, West Java, Central Java. We have been listed since 1990. We have been around since 1980, and our global customers are in US, Europe, Australia, as well as Africa and Middle East, as well as Asia, throughout Asia. Because we are dealing with sustainable brands, brands like North Face, Salomon, Arc'teryx, Adidas, Uniqlo, IKEA, to name a few, and also Ralph Lauren and many more. Because of it, we are compliance based because we have to also adhere to the fair fair treatment to our own employee as well as the whole supply chain. And our aim is by 2021 is about 130 million capacity, and our products are mostly in technical and fashion wear as well as performance wear. So if you look at your snow ski jacket, that's coming from us. 97% of our business are exports. So this is a brief on us. So what do we do during the COVID-19? So actually up to March, our global brands has been sustaining with us, including actually in the second quarter this year. However, they are very transparent with us, and they also are we also try to understand that because of the lockdown, due to the lockdown, the demand for the world is a little bit off, and therefore we also have to be sustaining our workforce. So our aim at that time in March, super transparent with us, we saw their future forecast bi-weekly so that we are able to manage our own. And the government also asked us to produce for them. And then we are also the official supplier of the government crisis management. So whatever rumors that we have at that time in March that Indonesia could not produce our own PPE, I clearly said to everyone here that Indonesia could produce our own PPE. Yeah, that's us. And what do we do to ensure that we could produce this during the COVID-19? We all know that this is all labor intensive. So the new normal in Pan Brothers has happened since Wuhan, actually, because we are supplying to the brand. The brand asked us to actually focus on making sure our workers are safe and the family of the workers are safe. So we are imposing masks since early March. We are also making sure that everyone is actually on the right temperature when they go in. Up to at least 5 degrees Celsius to stay at home from member types. We are able to monitor closely. And we are working in shift because we want to make sure that the line that we have has a social distance, not just when they enter our compound, but also when they work. So this is what we do in terms of making sure that the new normal of Pan Brothers have happened since back then, and this for the global brands as well as for PPE. And to keep detailing the personal hygienic for each of us, ensure that we have enough cleaning tools. We have enough also, not just hand sanitizer, but also making sure that they also wear gloves when they actually work, so that when they touch surface, they can keep their hygiene. Next, CSR. Before COVID-19, we are focusing ourselves on it. We also believe that education is part of the success of as well as productivity and efficiency. And as to surroundings, neighborhoods, because we believe, even though at that time WHO not yet recommending, or the government of Indonesia not yet put it into regulations.
Thank you, Anne. I think we're going to take a stop there, and we'll move to Aihua. I think Anne is having slightly, some technological challenges. So let me move to introducing my third speaker, Aihua Ong. Aihua joined Johnson & Johnson.
Safe, either via
Sorry about that. So Aihua joined Johnson & Johnson more than 25 years ago with a desire to make a difference to the lives of patients. Today, she oversees a team of more than 7,000 employees who deliver pharmaceutical innovation in Australia, China, Hong Kong, India, Japan, Korea, New Zealand, and Taiwan. Aihua began her career as a product specialist with Johnson & Johnson in 1991 before progressing to leadership roles in pharmaceuticals and medical devices while residing in Singapore, China, and the United States. In her previous position, Aihua was president of Johnson & Johnson Southeast Asia, where she implemented the first one-company enterprise business model. Welcome, Aihua, and I'd love to hear from you on J&J's coronavirus response.
Thank you, Naina. I hope my voice is coming out well. So good afternoon. I'm the company group chair for Pharmaceuticals Asia Pacific, Johnson & Johnson. Thank you for the invite, and very happy to be here representing Johnson & Johnson to join the panel discussion today. So J&J, I think many of you at some point in life will have used a Johnson & Johnson product, skincare or lotion. You may not know that J&J has a very large healthcare business. We are today's world's largest and most broadly based healthcare company, and we're committed to reach using our reach and size for good. So let me share with you the undertaking of our multi-pronged response to COVID-19 pandemic. First and foremost, we are of course taking precautions to support the safety and well-being of our employees, and personally continue to be inspired by our employees' dedication in meeting the needs of the patients we serve during this crisis to ensure no medicines and medical devices are being disrupted for the patients we serve. We do serve patients from oncology to patients with immunology disease, psychiatry patients, and all the way to orthopedics and surgery. So these are needs of the patients that we need to make sure that do not get disrupted during this pandemic. And you can see that secondly, what we do is we have collaborating to accelerate the development of a vaccine. And we know that no one party can do this at scale and speed, so we work across multiple partners in this development. We are using validated platforms that we already have for our Ebola, Zika, and HIV vaccines. At the same time, we are expanding our manufacturing capabilities in parallel as we embark on clinical trials, so that we can deliver on our commitment to manufacture 1 billion doses of vaccine to the world in 2021. We are also screening our compounds and conducting clinical trials to see if any of our drugs, existing drugs, that could help to treat those who have the virus. And this is also done in collaboration with academics and with the community of research and development. We mobilize to provide equipment, our products, and financial donations to support organizations and healthcare workers on the front line at the onset of the crisis. We have donated, just like Coca-Cola did in the PPEs. We have supported hospitals to procure such PPEs when they are not able to find the source. We continue with this commitment with $50 million to support and supply our frontline healthcare workers, not only with protective equipment, but also to provide extra training and mental health support. So as the world's biggest healthcare company, we will remain on the front lines of this health crisis, bringing our full resources and minds to combat it. Look forward to a great engagement over this Adobe Connect, and thank you for having me here. Over to you, Naina.
Thank you, Aihua. That was really interesting, and it was also good to hear from all three of you that not just are you looking at how you're impacting the community, but you're also looking after all your employees. To kickstart our conversation with our speakers, it would actually be interesting for us to hear from the audience as well about their expectations from corporate leaders. I would like to encourage all of you who are listening in to write your comments in the field provided on what you think. So what word or quality would you best describe as excellent corporate leadership? So there is a poll on your screen, and it would be good for us to learn from you. What is the one word or quality that you think best describes excellent corporate leadership? So while our audience is working on that, I would suggest that we move on. That was a lot of static. I apologize for that. We are going to now, while we're waiting for the answers of the poll, I would like to start the panel discussion. And I'll start with a question for Manolo. Coca-Cola is definitely one of the most well-recognized brands in the world, and you're leading the company's global marketing. You mentioned that you had used some of the savings from the marketing budget towards community relief efforts. Besides that, how has the pandemic impacted the company's marketing and communication needs? And do you foresee a long-term change in terms of the global strategy for marketing for Coca-Cola? Manolo?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, we are seeing some significant changes going on. Those changes affect both the consumption and the purchase patterns. Some of them are very evident and very logical to all of you. Our homes have become everything and everywhere. It's the place where we work, where we study, where we have good times, and where we have also bad times as well. Someone in my team said home is becoming both heaven and hell, depending on the day and the time of the day. So we're going to see some of the current behaviors stay in place. There are plenty of evidence that phenomena like Alibaba were born out of the last pandemic of SARS, and this time is not going to be different. Most global corporations and big companies around the world are rethinking upside down the future of work, whether that would be continue to be in an office or in a more distributed way moving forward. You're going to see a lot of those things shaping up. From my standpoint, in my current capacity as CMO of the company, I think it's too early to really be able to say. No one knows really. But what we know, when we look into our history since the year 1900, where we have suffered 3 major significant pandemics, is that after each and every one of those pandemics, the world has changed dramatically in terms of the values, in terms of the behaviors, and in terms of what people in those different chapters were doing before and then after. I can't unveil today what our marketing strategy will be into the future. As you know, we've always been a company trying to balance being present globally, but having a lot of local touch and feel in each and every one of the countries that we operate. It will not change or will not disappear. It will not be different. What you can expect for sure is that, as we've done in our history, we will be adapting our messaging, our portfolio of products and offering, our packages, the channels in which we operate to a new reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Manolo. It is definitely a balancing act when you're trying to balance, a global strategy with a very local high touch. And I think your point on the fact that every pandemic has shown up or thrown up unicorns will be true of this one as well. I'm going to move now to a question for Anne. Firstly, congratulations on helping Indonesia become self-reliant with regards to PPE equipment. That is an amazing feat.
Yeah, no problem.
So congratulations. Can you share some of the learnings that you have garnered through this crisis that actually reflects on your own sustainability strategy for Pan Brothers?
So the challenges is always the mindset of our internal, right? Because we are not used to produce medical grade. We are not used to produce a project for government. And we are focusing always on global brands, more into product development with global brands. So the mindset at that time is why we should produce cloth mask. It starts with cloth mask first, and then it turns into the PPE. And the total mindset are different, but we told the whole team, our strategy for this year is beyond automation and digitalization. And we believe that beyond automation and digitalization is humanity. So we need that humanity early on to be part of being concerned with our community, Indonesia, as well as ASEAN and Asia, and to be part of the COVID-19 pandemic savior. So we told our workers, let's focus on what we can do best. Let's support whatever we can do, and at the end, we will have sustainability there because we use our hearts. We are not just using it commercially. We are not using it just for the sake of the name, but we are using our expertise to actually save clothing people who are in the front line. So that's actually the challenges, yeah, the mindset. The rest is just follow. Now I can say that 100% of the workers in Pan Brothers, our employees, really understand why we are doing this. After 1 month, it takes a lot of massive communications, focus on why we should do this.
Thank you. Yes, changing it from a mindset to a heart mindset while also keeping sustainability in place is not easy. I want to bring you into the discussion. So as you said, Johnson & Johnson is the largest healthcare company in the world. I understand that Johnson & Johnson is developing a vaccine to protect against the COVID-19 infection. Do you feel that you were well prepared for the COVID-19 pandemic? Or have you faced some business challenges that you did not expect as you are reacting to this global crisis?
Well, I don't think anyone could claim that one is prepared for a pandemic, right? This is one that is totally unprecedented. And I think the word precedented has been used many times to describe the challenges that we all each face, not only in our company, but also in our personal lives. To talk about, how do we respond to pandemic? Maybe that's a way to position it is that we really look at, when we look at even the vaccine development, some of you may have read in mainstream media that a vaccine development typically takes 7 to 10 years. For the pharmaceutical industry to be able to have 100 vaccine program ongoing today is totally unheard of. That goes to show the extensive collaboration the community is actually coming together. And many of these programs are through multiple collaboration. So I think the key word here is when you can't be prepared for pandemic or at any time, nobody can 100% pandemic, but then how do you respond when it happens is very important. And collaborating, because not only our lives is at stake, but able to create a future that is safe and can be sustainable, I think brings all the like-minded people with expertise coming together. So we activated our vaccine program in January when Wuhan pandemic hit. We started to seek partners to collaborate. We also use our current validated platform that we feel that it will be our fastest road to our vaccine, right? And at the same time, we invest and expand expanding the manufacturing capabilities in parallel, such that we do not do it sequentially. Many of the time when it comes to vaccine or drug development, it's sequentially. You prove the clinical trials prove that it's safe, it's efficacy before you start planning for manufacturing. In this case, J&J has actually expanded in parallel because that is a risk that we want to take, and we feel that is the path that would really help us to cut down some time that a vaccine can be made available for emergency use as early as Q1 in 2021. I think the second area is our employees, right? This would be the largest ever work from home exercise around the world, you know. So continue to be very impressed by the dedication of our employees. And how do we respond to it is we deploy lots of technology, and thanks to the many years of investment, you know, we were able to use Microsoft Teams, Skype, Zoom, multiple channels to continue the engagement, not only internally, but externally with customers. Because a lot of our products, particularly medical devices and pharmaceuticals, involve education with the healthcare professionals. These virtual platforms allows a lot of this education to continue. And then thirdly is to ensure that the supply of these very much needed medical devices and pharmaceuticals to serve our patients does not get disrupted during this pandemic. So our supply, you know, with the spread of the virus, obviously global supply chain is faced with unprecedented logistical challenges, and situations remain really dynamic. So we have, you know, glad to say that our business continuity plans is really robust across the global supply chain, and we are able to continue to meet the demands of our patients, our customers, and consumers.
Thank you, Ai. That was very, very useful. Before I actually move on to the next set of questions, I thought I would go back to the poll that we did at the beginning of the session. It's interesting, the top 3 qualities that people would like to see, you know, or what they would describe as excellent corporate leadership are trust, responsibility, and integrity. I think these 3 are what I think we would like to see from corporates and from corporate leaders, not just in a time of pandemic, but I guess in all times to come. I'm going to we have a plethora of questions that are coming in from the audience. So I'm going to start with a question actually that has come from the audience, and I'm going to ask Manolo first to answer that. Learning from the COVID-19 experience, how do you incorporate resilience in corporate strategy to face future crises? As Aihua said, we can't be prepared for a pandemic. Nobody can be prepared for a pandemic. But how would you, going forward, actually incorporate resilience into your corporate strategy?
As I mentioned before, we are guided by a very strong sense of purpose as an organization. We have a purpose statement that really guides the way we behave, the way we see things, the way we see life, and the way we see growth and opportunities forward. As an organization, being present with local operations and with local factories in more than 200 countries around the world, it's unavoidable that every single year you have not one, but multiple crises, whether they are health-related or natural disaster-related or economic crisis-related. Every single year we have no less than 5 to 10 major countries in some part of the world going through some kind of significant stress. So crisis management, and particularly to that, resilience, it's pretty much part of our DNA. We are an organization that never abandon, never exit the country. We've only did once in India when a government forced us to unveil our intellectual property, and we left. But that's the only exception. No matter how severe might be the impact in our business, we are here to stay. I've seen myself suffer in these particular regions. I've seen how a massive manufacturing plant being evaporated in a matter of few hours with typhoons in the Philippines, the floods in 2011 in Bangkok, you name it. Resilience is something that when it comes to leadership, it's very, very important. And we try to provide a lot of it through leading by example. It's very easy to see how the wrong behaviors come up under stress for many leaders. Very much so. We try to first and foremost lead by example. A lot of the essence is around, as you mentioned, in some of the answers, is about trust, is about mutual respect, is about empathy, and understanding that as leaders we need to put ourselves in the shoes of our employees. This pandemic is showing a lot of things. I mean, to the degree that you have a diverse workforce, the personal situation of many of them is going to be radically different. Some of them are desperate to go back to the office. Others are enjoying very, very much this new way of working because it provides them a far more productive and personal time. But at the end of the day, no matter the kind of crisis that you're going through, resilience, a conviction that you're doing the right thing and that you're staying for the long term, and that you navigate through the short-term profits or the business continuity, that you put first and foremost ahead of your own self, your employees, the communities that you operate, your customers, which are at the end of the day the source of revenue for us, and our consumers. That has worked for us. Resilience, a final observation, is something that while not everyone is born with that, it can be developed into that. It can be trained. During this pandemic, we have had numerous sessions to really build or develop different techniques, different approaches, different ways in which different individuals can develop that resilience and find the source of it from within, because it also is different for each of us. That's our basic learning around it.
Thank you, Manolo. That's really, really interesting. And you talked a lot about putting people first and putting employees first. Another question that's come, and I'll ask Anne if you could answer that, is that in terms of CSR and working with vulnerable communities, you talked a little about keeping your employees prepared, and in terms of the post-COVID-19 crisis. A question that has come is that what sort of support have you been able to provide both your employees as well as vulnerable communities that you engage with? And what advice would you give to other corporates and foundations who would want to support these communities but are unable to have any physical engagements at this time?
Okay. And Brothers is not yet multinational like Coca-Cola or Johnson & Johnson. But what I said to all my team, making sure that we are actually employ 100% and not letting go any of our workers is already extra effort that we should do as a sustainable company. And even though global brands is having a down demand, but we need to make sure that we employ 100% within the existence of Penn Brothers. That's one. And second, actually, because we are able to pivoting also to PPE, at this moment, we are also recruiting more team. So at the end of this June, we will recruit 3,000 workers more so that we can focus on the PPE side, while the global brands we can also supply still. Because with the globally with the world right now, because the lockdown are being lifted gradually. The sustainable global brands that we work for actually asking more goods because they are low in inventory. I know that sounds very funny coming from a brand, but that's what actually happened in Van Brothers. This is very pragmatic. It's not very savvy, but I told my whole workers, the BOD of Van Brothers told our own team that we need to make sure that we are not relying for the government on incentive, but we rely on our inner strength so that the government can help out the community. You know that Indonesia is actually giving a lot of incentive for those who are unemployed and also for those who cannot go back to the village and unemployed by giving a social help. But this is what we also give to our community. Whatever mask, whatever PPE that we can support to local government, we are giving out as well. So that's in a way our saying to say that we are blessed with whatever we have during this pandemic.
Thanks, Anne. That was very interesting.
Yeah.
I there's a question here for you. We all talked a little bit and touched upon how the future of work is going to change as a result of the pandemic. Given that Johnson & Johnson is a medical services company, the question that is asked is quite pointed in for you. The work from home strictures that were announced by various governments, how did that actually impact the lab work that J&J has had to do to produce a vaccine? Can you shed some light on that?
Sure, of course. Yes, I'll definitely do that. I would like to just maybe give a few comments about resilience. I think it is really the core of recovery for all of us, and no big, no small company will be spared from this crisis. I think it is at the time where all of us can come together and use our own expertise and our size for good to truly turn this around. And not trying to be cheesy, but we all know that in life there's always opportunity in every crisis. So I think the more we work together, the more we can materialize these opportunities and recover strongly as a humanity. So over to the question about the lab work. So in Johnson & Johnson, just like in any company that has lab work or manufacturing to begin with, these are services that have to continue. So these are called on-site employees, and we need to make sure that their safety is taken care first and foremost. So what we have done, we have gone through very strict review of the protocol to ensure safety and also to ensure the health well-being of our employees, from availability of the PPEs to the measures that has to be instituted from beyond just temperature checking. There are many steps that involve to allow the employees to be at the lab or at the manufacturing, and even within the facility, there is observed safe distancing between the work that is done, and the new arrangement of some of the lines of production or even the lines of the lab where we have to make some modifications. But we all know these are important, and we really thank our employees for being very, very cooperative and go beyond the call of duty. They all know that their job is essential, and it has to be continued so that the vaccine development will continue. And we are not only just doing vaccine development, there's a lot of other drug development too, but vaccine development is really front and center. And with respect to production, we still have many patients who count on J&J for their medicine and for their surgery. And this production has to continue because these patients continue to need the drug and some of the surgical products and supplies that help them to recover back to their health. So I hope that gives a good view that we segregate our employees in terms of the necessary on-site essential services, and then those that belong to a different bucket that can work from home. And we make it really, really clear that what is the difference between necessary and then the other group, which is more of efficiency and effectiveness. And that gives the principles of where we are today, where many markets are into the road of recovery. We have now started to bring some of our employees back to office, but we are very clear about necessary. We talk about now the bucket of efficiency. The efficiency means which employees, what type of work you do that would be more efficient when it's done at the workplace. That would be the second wave. That would be the second wave of employees to go back. The third wave, which is the final wave, is what in what type of jobs where it will be done more effectively in the workplace, and that would be the final wave of employees. So this is what we're deploying around the world. But I would just like to use 1 minute, because I know there are many questions about vaccine, and I'd like to introduce something. Johnson & Johnson has worked with CNN to produce a series of episodes called The Road to a Vaccine. And this series of episodes is really developed with objectives in mind that there are been many varied information about the virus, from vaccine development to treatment. So we have come together with CNN to produce a series of episodes to provide the latest information and also to educate the public on the virus, the vaccine, the treatment, the lives of the frontline workers, and also the patients who have been infected. So please go to watch it. It's still on running. I believe it's episode 6 or 7 right now. You can go to CNN, you can go to LinkedIn, you can go to YouTube. The title of the series is The Road to Vaccine. And I think you'll get many of the information that you're seeking for from this series of conversations.
Thank you. I think that'll be very interesting for most people who are watching this and waiting anxiously for a vaccine to come out. So I do think, thank you for sharing that tip with us. I've tremendously enjoyed this conversation, and it's gone faster than I thought it would. And before we kind of wrap up, I would ask the audience if we could have a sense of your reflections as well. We would like to launch a poll on what your key takeaways were from this discussion. I know it's shorter than what most of you would have liked. Please do take the time to answer the poll question while I'm going to ask my speakers for their final remarks. So if you can answer, if I ask the audience to answer their 3 key takeaways from this session today, and I'm going to go to my speakers on the panel for their final wrap up on how COVID has impacted their business and what they see as the 3 takeaways for the way forward. So let's start with you, Manolo.
Obviously, we are being a public company like J&J. We are limited by the amount of what we can disclose in terms of impact. But beyond what is being made public, what I can tell you is that the impact has been very significant, particularly in the second quarter, as we anticipated basically a few weeks back in the official announcement of our results for the first quarter.
Let me move on to Anne, and we'll come back to Manolo for his closing comments. Anne, what would you think are sort of your takeaways post the pandemic?
Have faith in him. The only thing that I say to all my team, all my teamwork, all my employees, everyone, my colleague, and so on, have faith in him. Because since day one, I could not work from home. I have to work in the office. I have to work in the factory, because I'm one of the generals in this company. I have to make sure that my employees are safe. So does I. So do I. So I always say to everyone, have faith in him, just focus on the social COVID-19 protocol, and yeah, just show your heart that you are passionate enough for what we do. So that's all, Naina. That's the only thing that I'm looking forward every day. Have passionate on this work that we do, because the work that we do is something that is related to him. So by faith to him. Yeah. And then I said to all my workers that we all, in some ways, even though our religions might be different, but the faith is one, just to him.
Thank you. Yes, I think faith is something that we all need to have. Aiwa, what do you say? What would you say?
I know it sounds cheesy, but
not at all. Not at all.
I know it sounds cheesy, but yeah.
I agree with you, Anne. I think it is what is going to see us through. What do you think are your sort of 3 takeaways, and what do you feel we need to be doing going forward?
Yeah. So, we all talk about post-pandemic. What is the next norm? What is the new norm? I think all of us know that things will change. I think number one is the way we work will change. Would it be all virtual? I doubt so, but definitely it's going to be a very good blend of on-site and also virtual. And we, having tried this few months of work from home, I think all of us have learned how to be productive and also how to manage work from home when we now can return to the office. So I think that would really change. And that would be, I'm more optimistic. I think there will be a lot of good lessons that we'll learn about productivity and also flexibility in the work, in the workplace. The second is business model. I think every business model is being tested. No one can say that my business model is not going to change post-pandemic. How it will change, I think, depends on which industry you are in. Healthcare industry definitely will have changed. The increase of digitalization has more than accelerated during this pandemic, from e-consultation all the way to, e-commerce of drug prescription. And it is not just happening in one country, it's happening in every country. So that magnitude of change, I think, is what is different about this pandemic. So therefore, the pace and the magnitude is going to be very earth-shaking post-pandemic. I think the third one would be that I think we have now all realized, no matter what industry you're from, whether you're a big company, small company, multinational, or a local startup, we are more integrated and much more connected than we ever realized. So hopefully for all of us who are leading business or institution in different capacity, we'll remember that this integration and this connectedness really brings us back to doing things that are sustainable. Because only if each one of us bear that in mind and really learn that as a lesson, then we can recover and into a much better world and be much better off on the other side. And then we together would not have raised this crisis.
Thank you. Absolutely. How do we work? Our business model, how it changes, and how interconnected we are all things that have come out loud and clear from this pandemic. Manolo, to you to sort of help us end with, what are your takeaways from the pandemic, and how does Coca-Cola see the future?
Thank you. We see a future with a lot of change across the whole business and across the whole organization. We see a world that is going to change dramatically in terms of how beverages are consumed, where they're consumed, why they're consumed. We see a world with very different channel structures. And we see a world also in terms of our relationship with our employees very, very different. There's a lot of conversation going on around the future of work for us right now. We see more a world that instead of being central or local, it's going to be more into a network organization. And a network organization is not a matrix; it's something very different. And my last reflection is that I think I mentioned that we see the same. The world is going to be a much better place because these crises invite for reflection of what really matters, what is really important, what is really sustainable in the medium and long term, and what are the things that we need to really focus on to make things different. For us, for example, we're trying to define what emerging stronger from this crisis means, which goes well beyond just your own competitive position in the marketplace. It's about your own social license, your corporate reputation, your engagement of your employees. That is what really matters moving forward. So we see long-lasting positive effects from this, while in the medium or short term, maybe the journey is not going to be that easy, and a lot of people are going to struggle. We see, obviously, what we're all seeing, some significant and tectonic impacts from an economic standpoint. And but we're definitely ready to adapt the whole corporate enterprise into that reality. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all three of you for a very, very interesting discussion. We've ranged from, how work changes to how businesses will have to change, and in fact, how communities and countries will change post the pandemic, to, of course, how we all moving forward with faith in something that is bigger and greater than us. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to now hand it back to OT, our MC.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nena, Manolo, and Aihua. That was an incredibly insightful conversation. I'm sure we had almost 700 participants listening in, and judging also by the many questions we have received. They were very interested in your views, and unfortunately the time ran out and we did not have time to address all of the questions from the audience. But please rest assured we have recorded the call and will be sharing with the speakers for their information. For those of you who are AVPN members or paid ticket holders, you have access to the connector tool. So you may also connect with the speakers and with their teams to have direct conversations with them on the topics that are of your interest. So with that, we have now come to the end of the challenges for corporates in navigating the COVID-19 pandemic. This session has been made possible with the kind support of our lead partners, Chandler Foundation, Stockholm Environment Institute, and Ida and Bryce Foundation. We would love to have you share your highlights of this session on social media. So please remember to tag us using the hashtag AVPN2020. You'll also find more reading resources and examples of corporate action during this time of pandemic in the resource section and on our website. Up next with the AVPN virtual conference is the session on utilizing the Social Enterprise Development Toolkit, which will be starting in a little bit less than 1 hour, which is 2 p.m. Singapore time. Thank you, everyone, and please enjoy the rest of the conference.